The biggest challenge for me whenever I'm doing a modification or a conversion to a microplane is space inside the fuselage. So I was looking at how everything was situated in this, and I almost didn't do the twin motor conversion. I thought, well, so I thought about it, and I thought if I move the rudder and the elevator servos outside the fuselage, rather than have them inside the fuselage the way it is stock, I might have enough room for two ESCs inside the fuselage along with a Y cable to connect it up to my gyro. So that's what I did. 136 grams all up weight, so it's almost twice the weight it was stock. And that is using my GNB 2S 350 milliamp hour 60C LiPo as at 23 grams of weight. And the way I have everything installed and situated, I do not have to have any ballast weight on the nose or the tail. It balances perfectly right where I wanted it. All right, so the performance, the way I've got this set up right now, it has unlimited vertical. All right, so the motors I have on here are two Racer Star BR1306 4000 kV motors. The props that I have on it are HQ 3x4x3. They're polycarbonate. The 3-blade props with 5mm hubs. There'll be links to everything in the show notes. I think that you need to be able to do this conversion if you're interested in it. All right, because the ESCs I'm using are the Turnigy Plus 10 amp. They have switching voltage regulators. This is like 5 volt 2 amp. The rated for 2S to 4S. They're very lightweight. The servos that I use on this, and I really like these servos. I've used them in a lot of projects. I've had good luck with them. They're the EMAX ES9251, and these are the version 2, 2.5 gram digital servos. So that's what I'm using for the elevator and the rudder. All right, and the receiver and the gyro, these are my go-to. This is my go-to gyro and receiver. It's WFly RF21S SBUS receiver and the RadioLink Byme-A gyro. Here's a picture of the motors with the 3-blade polycarbonate props on them. Here's a picture of the ESCs, and here's a picture of the servos that I spoke about. Here's an image, picture of the WFly RF201S receiver. Here's a picture of the Byme-A gyro. Here's the battery that I'm flying with. All right, so step number one is to gut the plane except for the stock aileron, servo, and linkage. I'm using the stock aileron, servo, and linkage. Everything else I've replaced as far as electronics, so we've got everything pulled out. With a pair of needle nose pliers, I was able to work the brushed motor back and forth until I could release it from the housing here, and then just clip the wires behind the motor, and then I was able to pull those wires through to the battery compartment. All right, so my servos, I've located those vertically within the center position of the horizontal stabilizer. One on one side, one on the other side. This one has the arm facing upward because the control horn for the rudder is above the horizontal stabilizer. And as you'll see, the servo on the elevator side has the control arm facing downward because the control horn for the elevator is below the horizontal stabilizer. And then here's looking at it from the bottom. And as you can see here, I've got the back end of the servos flush with the trailing edge of the main wing. And like I said, having everything configured this way allowed me to get my CG without having any ballast weight. All right, and here you can see the linkage setup. I've got a couple of plastic tubes here. Now this is a very long run for that control rod without having any reinforcement for it. So what I did was I split the distance between where the servo is located and where the control horn is located. I glued these plastic tubes onto the side of the fuselage and tied everything together with a black zip tie and ran the control rod through that, so that now there's no flexing of the control rod for either the rudder or the elevator with it being reinforced this way. So you're definitely going to want to reinforce it with something to keep it from flexing. All right, here are the motors installed on the plane. This isn't complete yet, but I wanted to show it to you. What I did with this setup was I I found some scrap green plastic. I took, I drilled my holes for the mounts for the motor. I took some fiber tape and made a couple of turns, a couple of passes over the center section with fiber tape just to strengthen it a little bit. I took a section of Velcro and attached it to the wing, and then I attached Velcro to the bottom of these plates right here on the top and the bottom of the plastic mounts that I made. All right, so that allows you to attach the motor, and this is really good for a very lightweight setup, with motors with 2 to 3S power. I wouldn't use this for larger, heavier motors, but for micro motors, this works really well. So it allows me to attach the motors to the wings and be able to, clip and unclip that Velcro so that I can change the angle of the motor until I get it set exactly where I want it, as far as getting it aligned straight. And then I needed a little bit of down angle, so that when I throttle up, the plane isn't zooming on me. You got some downward thrust angle. And so once I got everything positioned the way I wanted, and I've got I would say about 1.5 degrees of down angle on the motors, and that worked out fine. If you guys watched the maiden flight with this setup, it worked out flawlessly. So I could give it full throttle, flying straight and level, and it maintained its line that way. Okay, you're going to need some down angle on the motors. So once I got everything positioned the way I wanted, I just took a steel barbecue skewer and I punched a hole through the wing about about the midpoint of those two plates, and I punched a hole through the wing, and then I just threaded a zip tie. And now if I ever need to reposition these motors, and luckily I don't have to because I got it right the first time, but if you ever have to reposition your motors to change the angle or something, all you've got to do is cut off the zip tie, peel off your Velcro, reposition your motor, Velcro it back down again, and you're ready to go again. All right, so here's the way I have everything positioned in. So after moving the servos to the outside of the fuselage, that gave me this entire center section in here to house my 2 ESCs and my Y cable for those and all the wiring. So those all fit right there in the center section, and then I've got my Byme gyro right in front of my ESCs, and then I've got my receiver set up here, and then I just punched a couple of holes over here to bring the antennas up where they were out of reach, out away from the battery and the electronics, and also out of reach of the props. So, and that worked out really well. And then my battery sits right on top, mounted in there vertically. Man, I'm really happy that I performed this twin motor mod on this plane. It's absolutely awesome. All right, so stay tuned for that. Once I'm happy with everything, I will publish my setup for this conversion. So that's a wrap on this episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time in the Tinkerz Lab.